Hi, and welcome to another episode of our Marion County Children Services podcast. My name is Elizabeth Moore. I'm our foster care and community engagement coordinator. And here with me today, I have Adam Sornchai. Adam, do you want to introduce yourself?
My name is Adam Sornchai. I am my wife and I are licensed foster parents since 2017. I'm also a pastor in the community and pastor of St. John Lutheran Church, Windfall, Cardington, Ohio.
And so those are all great things, but here today we're going to actually be talking about adoption and focusing on adoption. So November is National Adoption Month. And so to celebrate, we're kicking it off with this hopefully great conversation. I actually told Adam right before we started recording, let's stop because we're not getting all of this great conversation. And I want everyone to be able to hear it. So from one adoptive parent to another, we're going to hopefully help fill you in on some stuff. And then if you have any questions, obviously, you can put those down below and we can get to them, in due time, or you can always email them to me. But we'll just go ahead and jump right in. So Adam, big question is, why did you decide to become a foster to adopt parent?
So my wife and I had talked even when we were dating about the potential of building our family through adoption at some point. And for us, it became sooner than later. We decided as we were trying to have biological children let's not just wait for that process. Let's see what this process entails of adoption. And really not knowing what our options were and what the process was, really kind of looking into it, researched the pre-service training sessions through Marion County, and then started learning about it. And then I know in my introduction I said licensed foster parent, but the training, when we said we wanted to adopt, they said, well, the training is identical, right?
Yeah.
So we would recommend that you get trained to do both because it's more likely you're going to adopt through foster care and doing it through the county like this. So that's what we did. We got licensed we're licensed foster and adoptive parents.
Yeah.
And we finished all our trainings and all the requirements to get licensed. We were licensed back in April of 2017, and about a week later, we were set up with our first placements.
Yeah.
Long story short, we now have actually adopted in total 4 children.
Yeah, and your pictures are on the billboards, and you guys are going to be local celebrities when we have your video playing in the restaurants of the Community Advertising Network. So, and one of the things I want to point out is that, like we were talking again before, was every adoption story is different. In fact, your adoption stories are both different. So, one thing to maybe this is a good place to just kind of touch on that, since we're talking about differences in adoption stories, is do you want to maybe talk about, your relationship, at least with the one biological parent of your kids?
Sure, yeah. So one of our placements was one of those instances where Children's Services was calling, and it was a sibling group, that a 7-month-old at the time and a 2-year-old, and we were able to take the 2-year-old in. And as that case was unfolding, we were told that the father had to move back to another state to get better care for himself. And as things were just progressing, and we had the 2-year-old for a while at this point, he was thinking that reunification was not going to be possible one way or another. And he had even said to my wife and I would love it if you guys could adopt them, if you would, both of them. That's not necessarily how it works, but that was his desire. Right. And we, from the beginning, had a really good relationship and rapport with him. And so we were doing regular phone calls, video calls when we could. Long story short, in that instance, we ended up getting his little brother. I think he had just turned 1. And so with that, we've been keeping touch with him just about every week. And we've had a really good relationship. Even now, yeah, even at post-adoption. And actually, so the father's mother, so their biological grandmother, we have developed a relationship with as well. And that's been very fruitful. And
wonderful. Can never have too many grandparents.
No, you can never have too many. Yeah, and that's the one thing about this process that, if everybody's heart is in, the right place as far as the kids, you're not restricting love, you're expanding it. You know what I mean? So the amount of people that love these kids can be expansive and not restrictive. It's not competitive or anything of that nature.
Right.
And so that's been a wonderful blessing.
So I just want to touch on a few things because, I obviously, in my role in recruiting foster and adoptive families, have this conversation a lot with people out there. And so I think it's really important because, even in your guys' story, you have two totally different stories. But one of the things that I have told people when they call and they say they want to adopt, well, as far as our agency is concerned, we always start with foster. And we're always working towards reunification. And what I explain to families is that there can be a lot of heartache in that route, but there can also be a lot of help in that route where, you might go into it with the thought of, I want to adopt kids. But if you're also going into it with, but if along the way we're helping a family reunify and be healthy and be strong, you can offer a lot of support to families that way. So I love that you were talking about even from the beginning, trying to have that rapport and, and that's important because had those kids reunified, you guys could have still been a pretty good support system for them.
And at one point in the case with our two sons, we thought that might have been a possibility with a brief kinship placement. So we had thought that his little brother wasn't with us yet, and he went with a family member for a few days, and we thought that was going to be like in perpetuity, and we were prepared to be kind of cheerleaders and supportive of that extended family, and if we could be part of their lives in some way, that would be great, and we also be a part of their support system. How it turned out was that didn't work out, and he ended up coming back to our home with his brother, and then we ended up adopting him. But yeah, I mean, if that would have been kind of that story, we were preparing ourselves emotionally and with all
very
that.
hard, very hard.
Yeah, no, it's not. Yeah, in many ways. I mean, I have a friend that's a foster parent and says it's not for the faint of heart, but it's very. It's very holy work, I guess I would say. It can be hard, it can be difficult, but these children in the system need a loving, stable environment. I mean, you get that impression when you're doing the pre-service training, but even the ongoing trainings, love and stability. And if you can give that to a child for even a short time, I think that can do wonders. Obviously, we want that in perpetuity. But to be that home and for them to experience that, I think is so pivotal for
sure.
Kids.
Absolutely. Yeah. What is that quote, Josh Shipp, every child is one caring adult away from being a success story. So if you wouldn't mind, if you want to maybe talk about some of the challenges that you guys faced along the way.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, I think emotions involved because you're not going to be good at this unless you get attached. I'm just going to say that out there. I mean, no matter how many times people try to warn you on that or they let
What's
you know.
What's your wife's great quote on that?
Well, I think it's a quote that she's borrowed and stolen. But
probably.
if she always says when people tell her that, oh, I'd be worried if I'd get attached, she says, then you'd make a great foster parent or something to that effect. So. You're not going to be good at it, and you're not going to give the kids what they need unless you do get attached, and that is a risk. I mean, that no question about it. But they deserve that, So you have those emotions in there. You're not always going to agree with, how the laws are applied to various situations and how the system works at times, because you are invested in advocating through this side of what's best for the children, what I mean? And we have a system that's also looking at the rights of biological parents and that wants to work towards reunification, all these things. And so there's just all these things going on and all these tensions that could be there. So navigating through that can be challenging, and there's a lot more paperwork each month than I thought there would come with that stuff,
There's a lot of paperwork.
And so there's, in some ways it's like parenting plus, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and all understandable stuff, right?
Yeah.
But
you give your kid Tylenol.
Yeah.
You better write it down.
You gotta write it down. You gotta document it, right? So yeah. I mean, that's just those are the things that are just kind of you got a little bit more appointments and ongoing visits from caseworkers and things of that nature, and then them getting to their various appointments. Visits with biological family can be challenging at times, right? Because I know with our daughters that we adopted, the oldest had a really strong connection and attachment to her biological mother. And so coming off of those visits would be tough, right? I mean, and so weekly visitations can be difficult to navigate through at times,
So probably planning your lives around some of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, there are challenges, but there are tons of blessings that come with it, and having support systems to kind of help you to walk through that, and also I always recommend really connecting with other people that are foster parents in particular. People outside of it don't understand this, and they're wonderful support systems and resources. I'm not saying to not have them,
right? But
they don't fully understand that, and then and they kind of call balls and strikes in ways that aren't like, well, you don't really fully understand the nuances of this.
Right.
Where a foster parent and fellow foster parents understand, like they get it. They understand what your emotions are. They understand when you're being rational, irrational, and that you just need to be that, for the moment, and then just kind of walk each other through that. So.
Yeah, like that understanding of right now I'm just complaining.
Yeah.
Just like any parent would do. It's just I'm complaining about different things than, other parents complain about. Yeah. So that's great. So obviously the greatest part of your adoption story would be your kids. But what outside of that, what would you say were some of the greatest things in this whole experience for you?
I think, and I think being a pastor, this has been an education and an eye-opening experience to people in my congregation. So I really think, and I think anybody that does this, their circle will be, their eyes will be open to it, and it's an epiphany when they actually could put. This isn't an abstract child anymore. You know what I mean? A foster child. They see the kids that are in the system, and they immediately fall in love. As parents, we fall in love, and they want what's best for them naturally. And then they realize that there's more children like them, but now they have names, right?
And faces.
And names and faces. And so, I think in many ways, the more people that engage in it, the more you're going to open up to the people that you're connected with, more their eyes to the need that's out there, and how they can support, whether that means getting into becoming licensed foster or adoptive parents themselves, or supporting foster parents as they do this work.
Yeah, your church has been very inspirational to me. I mean, I have to say, I get these brief pictures of what I hope supportive communities look like, and, churches and other organizations out there. And then I kind of just let them fizzle. But then when I got to see some of that stuff in action and hear about how your church was ready, before you guys had placements, your church was ready with stuff too, because obviously we talked a lot about, some of the different needs, but there's also just physical needs that they have. And you never know what you're going to get.
Yeah. Well, and that sense of, I know that we had one parishioner that we were just so touched in the beginning because we were getting tons of like hand-me-downs and stuff, and like you can't really have a baby shower when you get your foster license because you don't know what age group you're getting, right? You have your preferences, but where you're going to get what you get placed with, you're not sure. And so once we, I think the girls were like 3.5 and 2 with our first placement, and we were just getting tons of support from our community. And I remember one parishioner telling my wife, you foster, we all foster. So that's the kind of, and then we had even friends outside the church that just were very helpful and supportive. So knowing that, I think it can bring communities together, the more people that engage in this work. I really do.
Yeah, and I just want to say for anyone who's listening and thinking, well, they're talking a lot about fostering, but once again, every adoption story is different, and most of the adoption stories that we see come out of here are, again, they're all different, but they come along this path of fostering, and so fostering is really kind of that first step. And like Adam said, when we are licensing families, we are licensing them mostly foster and adopt, kind of like a dual track, because it is pretty much the same except for one reference. So you have to have another reference if you're going to be an adoptive family. So I think all of this is very important, not just because obviously we're celebrating and highlighting adoption this month, but also we have children waiting. We have 4 teenagers waiting in foster care for their forever families. And so, that is the first step to become licensed, to go through those trainings. And they're actually being offered both in class and online right now, which is not a typical thing. So, like I said, COVID has had one great thing come out of it, that, some people have been able to find that flexibility as far as classes go. So,
one of the misconceptions that I often will see is how expensive adoption is.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yes.
So this process that we were enlightened to, kind of come across ourselves was really eye-opening in how, if you do it in this route, it is not expensive.
Right.
That way,
right.
And
well, like I said, it's essentially no charge. Like we aren't charging you, but obviously you have to have stuff. So maybe you have to go out and buy stuff.
But I think when people think of adoptions, they're thinking of, through private agencies that cost tens of thousands of dollars, from what I understand, or international adoptions, right?
Yes.
Where, there are children within your county, within your state, within the country that are waiting, as you pointed out, to be adopted.
I think over 100,000 in the country waiting.
And getting licensed, going through that, you can be matched, right?
Yes. For sure. Yeah, and there are websites out there. Obviously, I push for our kids, but there are websites that even if you are looking for a child and maybe we don't have a child waiting for a forever home and that age range, you can look those up. So I think Adopt US Kids. We also work with Wendy's Wonderful Kids to, help get some of our kids forever homes. So there are options out there. There are tons of options that are those essentially no cost adoptions. So, but once again, it's because you might have to purchase something just to be readily available. So there's no cost for our home studies. Our assessors we have assessors on staff. We're trained and we can come out and do those home studies. So, I think obviously going through the county is the way to go. To become an adoptive family.
Well, and the blessing with what I would say in our stories, and I think anybody that's done foster to adopt would tell you, is you have a track record then of stability for these kids. So it's seamless when they're being adopted. Yeah. Like, so for our daughters, I think it was about 2 years we had them, and so it wasn't, with a lot of children are moving from home to home, right, and finding where. In this instance, you limit that and you give them that stability they need, and it just transitions from being a foster placement to adoptive placement, which was probably a bigger deal to us with paperwork and court proceedings.
For sure.
But in their minds, it was seamless. And I would
probably
say the same thing with our
just
sons.
that one extra visit that they had with their caseworker that month. Like, oh, you're here again.
And I would say the same things for our sons. It was, and I celebrate that as a good thing. That it wasn't another kind of disruption in their lives, that they seamlessly became legally part of our family. We became their natural parents, right, through adoption. That's the goal, you know, in those instances, that if reunification can happen, that if that foster placement can be that adoptive home, permanency, that would be great. And so we were blessed to have that for the 4 children that we've adopted.
Awesome. I just want to encourage you too, if you have any questions as far as adoption goes, if you have the time, maybe go back and listen to, we do have a recording, I think from August, with Carrie Grogan, the placement supervisor here, and in regards to adoption. So maybe that'll answer some of your questions, but obviously you can always contact the agency and I will be willing to answer any questions that you might have, and we can make that connection. So Adam, one last question. What kind of advice would you have for someone who's maybe thinking, I maybe want to be an adoptive parent?
That they want to be an adoptive parent? Yes. I would say, there's no harm in just pursuing the training, right? And getting licensed, and just taking those steps while you're discerning. I would say that, you don't have to kind of sign up for it all one shot.
We're not making you sign in blood or anything at the beginning.
Go through the training. Talk to other parents that have adopted, through the county, through Children's Services. Talk to caseworkers. Talk to people like Elizabeth. But don't wait till okay, I'm definitely ready, and then I'm going to start. Just start doing the training. That's what my wife and I did. We just went through that process while we were discerning and praying about it. So
well, there's a lot of education, and obviously in the training, like there should be, right?
Yeah.
So I think you do learn some stuff.
You learn, you get connected with people that you're doing the
Build a
training with.
cohort, yeah.
Yeah. So I would say just start with that and see where it goes for you.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right. Well, once again, if you have any questions in regards to adoption, please feel free to reach out to us and let us know. I'll put my contact information down below. You can always make some comments on this Facebook video or on YouTube. We are also connected on LinkedIn. You can also email moreinfo@marionkids.com or call the agency and ask to speak with me. I'd be happy to answer any questions for you that you might have. And if I don't know the answer, I'll reach out to somebody and see if I can get it for you. But thank you so much for listening and have a great day.